Welcome, folks. I am Jabby Kaway, joined by Chara Kirk.
Yo.
We're looking at Spider-Man No Way Home, Memory Wipe, finally explained by New Rockstars. Thank you, New Rockstars, for allowing us to react to this. Very, very much appreciate it. Y'all, if you haven't subscribed to New Rockstars, there's a link in the description below. You can click on that, subscribe to them from there, and give them an upvote. While you're subscribing and upvoting, please subscribe here, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up to let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's check this out.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Spider-Man No Way Home rewrote reality inside of the MCU in a way that I'm not sure we're all fully appreciating yet. Yes, we are all crying, but later on in the bathroom we're like, oh wait, how does that make sense?
Hey.
I get that checked. I'm referring, of course, to Doctor Strange's memory wipe spell that makes the whole world forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Essentially unwinding Mysterio and J. Jonah Jameson's unmasking him, while also erasing Peter himself from the memories of MJ and Ned and Happy Hogan and everybody. So how was reality changed exactly? What exactly does each character remember? Well, after giving myself enough time to process this film and get parts of me checked, I got you covered. Here we go, Doctor Strange's memory wipe spell explained. So Doctor Strange calls this spell the Runes of Kafkal, which Strange had previously used to make Wong forget about a full moon party in Kamar-Taj.
But then how come he remembered?
Because he's the one that cast the spell.
But he cast this spell, so why did he forget?
What?
Oh, okay. I guess it's because
Doctor Strange cast the spell.
Yes, he also cast the spell for the full moon party, but I guess the parameters of the spell are different because...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, because Doctor Strange cast the spell, I think that Doctor Strange remembers who Spider-Man is. Unless he conducted the spell, unless he added a detail in such a way that he was to forget also. But I feel fairly certain that Doctor Strange will remember that Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
Well, it might be to do with the fact that the wording of the spell is everyone who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Or there's that too, yeah.
Will
See, that's
forget.
just a difference.
So maybe it's that. Maybe he just cast a spell to be like,
you answered your own question.
Everyone apart from me
Yes,
who's
exactly.
at the party will forget. Okay, fine.
The event itself still happened. Such is the case with Peter Parker. The world has forgotten that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but there is still a Spider-Man. It's just to everyone else, he's now a masked mystery figure once more. But the problem is, in order for this memory wipe to be plausible, reality itself must also have been warped physically for there to be no record, public or private, of Peter's history as Spider-Man. Like, you can't have MJ now thinking, duh, that creeper from the donut shop left a bunch of shirtless selfies on my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
The screenwriters acknowledged this confusion in an interview with Variety. To questions as to whether Peter Parker has a social security number now, the writers grimaced and said they had discussed it and that they considered using the visual of characters fading from photographs like in Back to the Future to show reality warping. Writer Chris McKenna said, obviously some sort of magical redaction has occurred. At the end of all this, we didn't want a lot of people trying to do magical math in their head.
They should have totally showed something like that in order to just help audiences as they went out of the theater, because I think that asking, how about Flash Thompson's book? Like, I feel like that is the wrong question you want to leave audiences with, even by refrigerator logic. If you don't know what refrigerator logic is, it's where you're done watching the film, you kind of enjoyed it, you get home, and then you open up the fridge to make a sandwich and you're like, wait a second. That's refrigerator logic. That's why it's called that, right?
Or in this case, bathroom logic.
Or bathroom, yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think they should have included something like that, even 10 seconds, in order to just eliminate that completely from the audience's mind.
Right, yeah, just to kind of be clear as to what happened exactly there.
Sorry, buddy, you made a great nerd movie with multiverse logic, and this is inevitable. But according to McKenna, people had these experiences, but they start forgetting the person they knew, but they were still affected by the events that happened. So from this helpful explanation and from evidence in the film, I think we can derive the 4 rules for Doctor Strange's final memory wipe spell in Spider-Man No Way Home. Rule 1, everyone still alive who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man no longer remembers. Rule 2, everyone still alive who had any relationship whatsoever with Peter Parker now views him as a stranger. Rule 3, reality itself has been rewritten to alter all physical records of Peter Parker into a new replacement history. This includes photos, newspapers, videos, social media, public displays, academic records, and state records. The writers used the Back to the Future photo fade example, but Harry Potter fans could also look at this as Hermione's sad Obliviate spell in Deathly Hallows, which gaslit Mr. Granger and Catelyn Stark dark, erasing Hermione from now very awkwardly framed photos. And rule 4, Spider-Man as a public figure still exists in the historical record, but he was never unmasked.
My question is about rule number 3. Reality itself has been rewritten to alter all physical records of Peter Parker into a new replacement history. Why? I mean, I guess... It's hurting my head. Can you explain?
Simply put, he's just been redacted from everything, like photos, Flash Thompson's book,
but
the shrine.
Okay, so like
any like photo of him in someone's phone, like the person Peter Parker is no longer even like remembered.
See, that's the thing that bothers me, because the spell is that, okay, no one's going to remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Why can't he still be friends with all those people?
That's not how the spell works.
And still be Peter Parker, but they don't know that he's Spider-Man.
Because that's not the spell that was casted. The spell that was casted as an easy wipe is no one knows who Peter Parker is. It's that simple. Everyone who knew who Peter Parker was no longer remembered. Now they just see him as a stranger. They have no idea who he is.
Okay.
The thing is, our memory plays tricks on us all the time, and we probably remember a conversation we had at a party or classmates we had at school, and there's just like this sort of figure over here that it's like a blurry face.
Yeah, it's like a shadow.
We knew that person.
Yeah.
We knew that person for a while, but now we can't remember their name or really what they looked like, and it doesn't matter because that's in the past. And we just sort of write it off and let it go.
Yeah.
And we do this all the time. And so I guess it kind of makes sense psychologically speaking, but it still does feel weird. The reason why number 3 kind of breaks me is because Doctor Strange made this whole kerfuffle about how you can't do anything anymore because he doesn't have the time stone. But this essentially is going back in time and undoing stuff. So how is this any different from the time stone?
Oh no, nothing is undone. Everything that happened still happened. It's just no one remembers that it's him.
It's all been rewritten.
Okay.
That is essentially the same effect as the time stone.
This still makes me very frustrated.
So
I don't feel like my questions are being answered here, New Rockstars, but we're only 3 minutes into the video, so...
This is a very complicated thing.
Yes.
Spider-Man being Peter Parker being Spider-Man exists in hard drives, in text messages, in social media. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And so the easiest thing to do is to disassociate the two. He was never revealed. Like someone had talked about it before on social media, actually, which is just undo whatever, what's his name did?
Mysterio?
Yeah, Mysterio, just undo whatever he did. Just like, that's the spell. No one remembers what Mysterio said, and that undoes everything, right?
Yeah.
But like, and you never have to give up, Peter Parker never has to give up his life, his relationships, etc.
Yeah.
But you're not thinking about that when you're in the throes of the movie. You're only thinking about that. That's like, that's not even refrigerator logic. That's like, I'm eating the sandwich logic.
Yeah.
So that number 3 just sort of messes with my head because of the big deal that Doctor Strange had made about no longer having the time stone. That's the only reason number 3 is like weird to me. It would have been like rewriting history, rewriting things is a big issue, but simply erasing it upon the spell being cast, that's fine. You're erasing all records of Spider-Man being Peter Parker, all of Flash Thompson's books, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. Just erasing it is fine because then it goes in line with people's memories being wiped at the same time of that connection. But to say it's rewritten, that's a problem. That one word I think is very problematic.
Semantics.
It's not semantics. That's a big problem. You can't say rewritten because that's the same as the time stones. Okay, anyway, moving on.
Specifically, people who knew Peter's Spider-Man link do not remember a blurry face or an alternate face under that mask. They only have memories of Spider-Man as a masked Spider-Man. And any parts of those memories that involved their relationship with Peter were replaced with different memories. So I know that's a lot, but let's go character by character to see how this works.
Yeah,
For Peter Parker, all of his memories remain intact as they were, except now his external identity has been reset. Like we see that he is now studying for the GED, which is a test that you take as an alternative to a high school diploma so that you can apply for college or qualify for basic jobs. This means that Peter's academic record at Midtown School of Science and Technology has been erased, and not just from people's memories. There is no physical record of any Peter Parker at Midtown High. However,
why?
Peter is renting an apartment in Manhattan, for which you need a state ID at least. So presumably reality has been rewritten in a specific way so that Peter Parker still has all of these basic things, but his academic history was so intertwined with his life as Spider-Man that the spell just kind of pulled a replace all there. Now, when we talk about Peter Parker's friends, it's important to note that Peter already had a habit of ghosting various events so that Ned, MJ, and the rest all have plenty of unaltered memories without Peter in them.
That's true.
Like at Homecoming,
Yeah.
Peter bailed from Liz's party, he bailed from the academic decathlon in DC,
Yeah, he was absent
from the
a lot.
homecoming dance,
Yeah.
the field trip in Infinity War, and several points in their Euro trip in Far From Home. For most Midtown students, it's sad to admit it, but these were mostly Peter-free memories already.
Yeah.
Ned Leeds certainly has some Peter-free memories from the many times Peter ghosted. He just no longer really knows why he was alone there. And if you were to listen carefully, Ned even says he built that Lego Death Star mostly without Peter's help.
You wanna build it tonight?
I can't tonight. I got the Stark.
Stark internship.
Yeah, exactly.
Boys got that internship.
Eh?
I'll knock out the basic ones with the Death Star in my place.
Nice insert of
And
the
then I'll come
song.
by afterwards because for the most part,
But still, Ned spent quite a bit of time with his best bud, like in class, at lunch, on field trips, all experiences that Ned must now remember as either being alone or with someone else. Hopefully with someone else. Unless he
Yeah.
wants to be alone. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert. Like in particular for Ned, that crisis at the Washington Monument, now that he would have no memory of Peter Parker giving him that explosive Chitauri tech, this was caused by some mysterious blast from his backpack, and thank God that spider guy just happened to be there. Ned's memory of their homecoming dance was really just him with his academic decathlon buds, as we saw with that photo of Ned and MJ, just the two of them from that homecoming dance without Peter, a photo that appeared throughout Spider-Man No Way Home. Twice, in fact. We saw it once in Peter's bedroom, and then again in the background of MJ's bedroom. This prop might have been part of that scrapped Back to the Future photo fade plan that the writers discussed. And then in Spider-Man Far From Home, Ned originally was part of that seat switcheroo that resulted in Peter sitting with Mr. Harrington, Brad
That's
sitting
right.
with MJ, Ned sitting with Betty Brant. Without Peter requesting that, Ned might not have ended up sitting with Betty and might never have had that summer fling with her. But otherwise, his Euro trip is now marked by random attacks by elemental monsters revealed as weaponized drones, interferences by Mysterio, and from that Night Monkey guy, who knows if Ned still would have improvised that name, and then of course Spider-Man in London, but also would have had a random memory of him fainting in his hotel room in Venice. Now, as we saw in the No Way Home ending, Ned, without Peter in his life, got into MIT and has stayed friends with MJ. He probably still has his hidden sorcerer talent since he told Dr. Strange this was something his Nana mentioned was in his family. This was something independent of his relationship with Peter. But now that Ned has no memory of discovering Peter as Spider-Man, he never dropped that finished Death Star Lego set, so he would never miss the memory of him and Peter rebuilding it later in Homecoming. However, Peter still possesses that Lego Palpatine at the end of No Way Home. He also possesses a sewing machine to make his new suit that looks a lot like the one we saw in Ned's Nana's living room. So who knows? Peter might have found a way to restore his buddy's memories. We won't know that until the next film.
Watching this breakdown makes me think of something completely different, which is I kind of wish that the Disney Plus streaming service came sooner so that we could have a TV show of Ned and Peter Parker, and like
that
the
would
high
be
school life.
so cute.
You know, like a Saved by the Bell, but with Spider-Man or something. I think that would have been a fun show. Just like seeing Peter Parker in his like goofy life, like just trying to be a kid and having to deal with the responsibility of being a teenager and a superhero at the same time in high school. That would have been a fun show.
It would have been, but like realistically, I think, you know, with Tom Holland and Zendaya being the A-listers that they
weren't
are,
at the time though. When they came on the scene, they weren't as well known. They became well known, I think, I could be wrong, because Zendaya's been around for a minute. I think they became way more well known because of Marvel. And so it's entirely possible we could have had, we got big stars doing shows all the time.
That's true.
So I think it would have been fun to have like at least like a 6 or 10 episode thing of them, you know, that feels kind of like, they did it with WandaVision, you know, that feels kind of throwback. You know, you have the action, but you also have the comedy.
That would be cute.
You know, even
Yeah.
throw in the live audience. Why not? Like, just go all the way. You know, you can have it be two things. It's an action show, but it's also a live studio audience for the comedic parts.
Yeah.
But Disney had shows like that. They had live studio audience shows. Like, how crazy would it have been if they took that model and implemented it to Spider-Man? I don't know. Maybe I'm asking for too much.
But on to Peter's girlfriend, Michelle Jones Watson. She was certainly one of those proud loners that I talked about. Nothing wrong with that. She was often seen sitting by herself, reading and doodling. She actually admitted that she didn't really have any friends.
Because I don't have any friends. My friends call me MJ.
I thought you didn't have any friends.
I didn't.
MJ would have stayed on that same path. She did by herself score the winning point in the academic decathlon in DC, and then shortly after, she directed the mysterious Spider-Man to save her friends in the Washington Monument. All that still would have played out the same. However, there was no Peter Parker in her class to fuel her suspicion that this kid's recurring disappearances and Spider-Man's coincidental appearances at the same time were connected. So MJ never would have found out who he was on her own, but in her academic career, she still would have become the academic decathlon team captain, and she probably still would have ended up at MIT. Now, MJ, like Ned, was heavily involved with Peter's crisis in No Way Home, but this spell likely erased everything they did alongside Peter to capture the multiverse men and to connect him with his alternate Peters. Now, when that spell subsided and these two just would have found themselves on Liberty Island, they must have at least remembered being part of all that, since MJ still had that bump on her head at the end of the movie. But I assume that they were visiting the Statue of Liberty. They got sucked into some crisis with at least one masked Spider-Man, but a masked Spider-Man. Because MJ may remember falling from that scaffolding, but I imagine she now remembers the Spider-Man who caught her was masked. And that is a very important point, because Ned, MJ, the rest cannot remember any blur or alternate face under the Spider-Man mask, because then that would be associated with the reality where Spider-Man was unmasked and then scandalized, that then left them with a guilt by association that doomed them with MIT, which is not the case here since they got into MIT, in a world where no one knows who Peter Parker is. However, despite her brief romance with Peter Parker getting erased from her memory, the spell did not erase that broken Black Dahlia necklace that Peter bought her in Venice and gave to her in London. She continues to wear it. The necklace itself doesn't on its face reference Peter in any way, so she may just continue to wear it as a reflection of her love for broken things.
I actually like it better broken.
But come on, the true deeper significance of this necklace is that this is a bit of Eternal Sunshine-esque symbolism of love's persistence beyond memory.
Exactly.
The way that our hearts fill the vacant corners of our lives with the person we know is out there looking for us. So once you're done crying, let's move on to Flash Thompson. Flash's Flashpoint tell-all book certainly would have been erased from existence. Now, I'm not sure how pivotal that book was to his getting into MIT, considering that admission officer totally rolled her eyes at it, and really people with actual associations with Peter Parker got rejected from MIT. So I think it was really Flash's rich parents who got him in anyway, his life pretty much unchanged. But Happy Hogan is an interesting case, because he remembers his relationship with Aunt May, but not how May entered his life. Now, at her grave, he told this random kid that, like him, he knew May through Spider-Man, so he probably still knows that she was related to Spider-Man in some way, but not how exactly. Maybe to her, Spider-Man was just a masked celebrity who supported her homeless outreach in Far From Home, but not her nephew per se. So his new memories likely involve that assignment from Tony Stark to transport this kid from Queens to Berlin, but that kid must have been masked the whole time, because Happy Hogan cannot know who Spider-Man is now in this reality. But now we're getting to Peter's history with the Avengers. It would be simple enough to say that Peter never joined the Avengers for anything, but that can't be the case, because Spider-Man was still there with Tony Stark in the Avengers for all the events he previously did: Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. The difference, though, is that Peter was now masked in all of their memories, because it's not possible for Spider-Man to be completely extracted from all that history, because he played too pivotal a role in Civil War, helping Team Iron Man, and then Infinity War, saving the lives of Bruce Banner and Doctor Strange, and saving the Guardians from floating off of Titan. And in the Endgame, it was the memory of Peter Parker that inspired Tony Stark to give another thought to time travel, and it was Peter there in that final battle who passed the gauntlet from person to person. He needed to be there, and Spider-Man was there for all of it. The difference now is Peter, throughout all of that, never took off his mask.
This is a very, very, very intense, long explanation, which is great, by the way. All for the convenience of Spider-Man has solo movies now. There's a lot of justifications and concessions being made in order to accomplish this thing where it's almost like the studio saying, the audience will figure it out.
It's fine.
The fans will figure it. YouTube will deal with this.
Yes.
Well, we're just going to go on our merry way making these solo Spider-Man movies. Who cares?
We're passing the gauntlet, YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube figure it out. Yes, we're just going to make these movies now. Look away. Nothing to see here.
Yeah. The whole Happy Hogan thing did kind of like mess me up in the head a little bit, because I was all like, wait, but... So he was never Aunt May's nephew? She never had a nephew? Is that how the magic spell works?
Yes.
It's just like he was erased.
If there was a nephew, there's
he was just spoken about in passing, and he never ever saw him. That's so sad.
Yeah.
This spell sucks. That's all. It's just an incredibly sad.
It was the ultimate sacrifice in order to save everybody.
His identity remained a secret throughout all of it. And so, living Avengers like Bruce Banner, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Nick Fury, everyone who was at Tony Stark's funeral they now remember meeting a Spider-Man, but not the kid under the mask. This also goes for the press and the public. In No Way Home, after the spell, J. Jonah Jameson reports, "It's been a few weeks since the fiasco with the Statue of Liberty, and Spider-Man's cultists continue to contend that the vile vigilante is a hero. But if he were a hero, he'd unmask himself and tell us who he really is." So the public has no memory of Peter Parker, but the press continues to blast Spider-Man as a vigilante involved with the death of Mysterio. So the first part of that broadcast in the Far From Home post-credit scene still happened. The second part did not. This would also be the narrative of the surviving members of Team Mysterio, like William Ginter Reba, Guterman, Victoria, who would also maintain that Spider-Man, whom they don't remember unmasked, was the one who betrayed Quentin Beck. Now, would this also go for anyone off-world at the time of the spell, like the Guardians, the Skrulls, etc.? Well, yes, many of these characters did know that Peter was Spider-Man, and if Thanos' Infinity Stone magic can affect people on more than one planet at the same time, presumably so can the runes of Kafkal. Peter Quill, Drax, Mantis, Nebula, Thor, and the Skrulls probably don't care that much about the kid under the Spider-Man mask anyway, but for now, he is a forgotten memory to them. Now, what about other universes? That is a trickier question. Peter Parker was not unmasked and scandalized in other realities the way he was in the MCU. If we assume that unmasking was the main action that was reversed, I don't think the implication was that this spell extends to all realities, especially when we know the Tobey Maguire continuity had its own Doctor Strange.
That doesn't make an incredible amount of sense, though, because the whole thing was these villains from other dimensions were coming into his reality.
Because they knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Yes.
Therefore, the spell ought to affect them.
Yes.
Because it affected them in the first place.
Well, it affected them in the third act of the movie when they were sent back.
Yeah. So
I would have to disagree with that one.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. But it's taken.
I would assume only the Doctor Strange of that reality can cast spells like the runes of Kafkal that affect the characters in it. But the question we should still be left with is whether Tony Stark still knew when he was still alive in this revised history. Arguably, like with Aunt May, it doesn't really matter now that they're dead. But Stark might still have known since he was the one who found Peter Parker and designed each of his suits to be custom to him. But any records kept by Tony or by May, like their photos of Peter or any conversations they had with others about Peter, have now been erased from existence. However, at the end of No Way Home, Peter sews a new suit. Why not use any of these Stark designed suits that he had, like the Homecoming era suit, the Far From Home suit that he made in the Fabricator on the jet, or the nanotech Iron Spider armor, or the hybrid suit that we see him at the end of the movie? Well, again, this is not as simple as those past suits fading from existence, because Peter needed them to help the Avengers, who all have histories inextricably linked with Spider-Man in those suits. But perhaps the biometric scans that allowed Peter to operate those suits no longer function because Peter is not registered in the software of the suits as a person named Peter Parker does not exist in reality anymore, according to
But if the biometrics are the same, right? Presumably, you don't need a name to access biometrics. That's just your biology.
Well, the biometrics data has been erased.
Oh.
Because it's associated with Peter Parker.
But then how did he wear those suits? I mean, I guess it's fine. It's just all erased, redacted.
This is a
I'm
nonsense.
asking too many questions.
Yeah, this is a nonsensical thing that isn't going to make any sense. Okay, so in the movie Looper, there's this scene where this guy's running from the bad guys or something like that, and as he's running, parts of his body is falling off, right? Because in the future, he's being tortured.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, that makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense because if he's being tortured, then he never was able to get away to then run away and get chased. If he's stuck in the torture room...
Oh, you mean in the past he's
he's in the past, he's being tortured.
Right, because I was like, why would that affect him if it was the future? So in the past, he's being tortured, and so that's affecting him in the present day.
Yeah, it's affecting him in the present day or the future where he's running, and he's seeing parts of his body disappear because he's being tortured in the past. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. How would he ever get to that position in time if he never even left that room?
Right.
And so that's the kind of like time logic that gets screwy whenever you're watching a film. So it's best to just not even think about it.
You're absolutely
and just
right.
keep moving forward, because then it's just gonna hurt. You know, like I experienced that as a kid with Terminator, where John Connor's father is Kyle Reese from the future. And I'm like, what? But where does it start? And the explanation is, well, it just always was that. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
This is the way.
Where's the starting point? The explanation is that it always was, for Terminator anyway, before people at me in the comments about it. But here, it's just like, it doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of great explanations here, but it doesn't fill in all the holes.
No.
There's still a bunch of rebar showing. There's still a bunch of grout sticking out. It's like, you can still see outside through the walls. The drywall hasn't been complete.
Yes.
Like, this explanation still has a lot of holes in it for me. I think New Rockstar is doing a great job of going out of its way to try to patch all these holes up. There's no fixing this. It's just like,
No, yeah.
it's a messy thing. And at the end of the day, you were entertained by the movie.
Yes.
And that's all that matters.
We were entertained.
All the illogical fallacies, or all the logical fallacies rather, doesn't matter really that much. It's like, it's not gonna make or break you at the end of the day. It's just keep moving forward.
That is my best explanation of the runes of memories of Peter faded. Evidence that supported those memories altered, but the little trinkets keeping the spark of the memory alive remain.
Yeah.
I'm watching his explanation. It's like he's doing a bang up job
Yeah.
of like going through bit by bit and going, well, here's how this would work and this would work. And I'm like, yeah, all that, but still this glaring thing over here.
I have questions.
There's still a big ass elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So, and it's fine.
This is how the story was written. This is how the story was told. You know, we just have to accept it.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy movie. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like you're right. I mean, time travel's not real either. So,
Says you.
yes, by our current rules, like time travel the way it's shown in these movies it doesn't make sense. So there. It's fine. Move the fuck on. It doesn't matter that much.
It's okay.
It's all right.
We'll be fine.
But I was entertained.
Yes.
I was entertained by the movie and
The video.
The New Rockstars
Yeah.
explanation as to what happened.
Yeah. Very good.
Say much logic. All right, thank you, Erik Voss. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hit that subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up to let YouTube know you enjoyed what you watched. I'm Jabby Kuwait. This is
Achara Cook.
Peace out.